I walked into my parents' living room holding the $180,000 paid-off mortgage deed. And my older sister was already holding a tape measure against the fireplace, while a realtor in a blazer took photos for the listing. 7 years, $1,500 every month. I paid it all in secret so my parents could retire. She told them the bank forgave the loan. She lied for 2 years. She was about to split $600,000 in profit from the house I bought. She didn't know I had won $34 piece of paper that would end everything. And my dad's 5 words in court, they went viral. Hi, I'm Jessica Miller. I'm 34 years old and until 3:47 p.m. last Tuesday I thought I was the good daughter. I work as an ER nurse at St. Luke's in Cleveland. 12-hour shifts, nights, holidays, doubles when someone calls out sick, which is always. For the last 7 years, I've done it for one reason, and it wasn't the paycheck. It was the house on Maplewood Drive. Not my house, my parents' house. The little blue two-story with the crooked porch swing and the kitchen linoleum my mom has hated since 1998. When I was 26, Dad had his first heart attack. He was 58, a high school shop teacher who thought retirement plan meant they'd refinance the house in 2008 to pay for my sister Vanessa's wedding, the big one. With the ice sculpture and the string quartet, and then again in 2012 when Dad's bypass put them $40K in medical debt. By 2017, they owed $183,472.19 on a house that was worth maybe $220K. The payment was $1,417 a month. Dad's teacher pension was $2,100. Mom's social security was $900. Do the math. After utilities, groceries, and Dad's meds, they were eating through savings at about $800. I remember the night Mom called me crying. It was a Thursday. I'd just gotten off a 14-hour shift, still in scrubs, eating cold ramen in my studio apartment. Jess, honey, we're going to have to sell, she whispered. Your father won't say it, but the bank sent the third notice. I didn't sleep that night. I pulled up their mortgage statement online. They'd given me power of attorney for medical stuff after Dad's heart attack, so I had access and I stared at that number. $183,472.19. She works as a lifestyle blogger, which mostly means posting photos of her kids' Montessori crafts and affiliate links for $90 candles. When Mom called her that same week, Vanessa said, and I quote because Mom repeated it word for word, well, maybe it's time they downsized. It's a lot of house for two old people. I didn't say anything. I just opened a new savings account that night and labeled it MAPLEWOOD. For 7 years, I lived like a monk. I picked up every extra shift. I worked Christmas, New Year's, 4th of July time and a half. I didn't date because dating costs money. I drove a 2009 Honda Civic with 198,000 miles. I meal prepped chicken and rice every Sunday. My friends went to Nashville for bachelorette parties. I sent a gift card and covered a night shift for the overtime. Every month on the 1st, I sent $1,500 to their mortgage company. Not $1,417, $1,500 so it hit principal. I never told them. I set it up as an automatic payment from J. Miller, and when Dad called confused the first month, I said, oh, must be a bank error in your favor, Dad, don't question. He laughed. He actually believed the bank would just give him money. Vanessa knew, of course, she had too. Mom told her after about a year, probably hoping she'd chip in. Vanessa sent $200 once for Christmas 2019 with a card that said, for Mom and Dad's house fund, love you. She posted about, I sent $126,000 over 7 years. With interest, it wiped the loan. Last month, I got the letter. Congratulations, your mortgage has been satisfied. I cried in the hospital parking garage. A real, ugly cry. I printed the deed. The plan was simple. Tuesday, my day off. I'd bring lunch from their favorite deli, hand them the folder, and finally tell them they owned their home free and clear. Dad could retire for real. Mom could get the kitchen redone. I even bought a little cake that said paid in full, in frosting. I pulled into their driveway at 3:42 p.m. Vanessa's white Lexus SUV was there. Weird, she never visits on Tuesdays, that's her content creation day. I could hear voices inside. I used my key. And that's when I saw it. The living room, my mom's living room with the quilt she made and Dad's recliner with the duct tape on the arm, was staged. The family photos were gone from the mantel. In their place was a small, tasteful vase with fake eucalyptus. Vanessa was in Lululemon holding a metal tape measure against the fireplace. It's 68 inches, perfect for the staging photos, she said to a woman in a navy blazer holding an iPad. The woman, the realtor, looked up and smiled at me, professional and bright. Oh, you must be the sister. Vanessa said you might stop by. I'm Karen from Howard Hanna. We're just getting measurements for the listing. I stood there, blue folder sweating in my hand, cake tilting in the other. Mom came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Her face went white. Jessica, honey, what? What are you doing here? Dad was behind her in his chair, looking smaller than I remembered. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Vanessa turned all teeth. Jess, perfect timing. Mom and Dad were just about to tell you. We've decided to sell. It's just too much for them and the market is insane right now. Karen thinks we can get $650,000. The number hit me like a slap. $650,000. My brain did the math automatically, nurse brain. $650,000 minus the 6% realtor fee minus closing costs. They'd walk away with about $600K. Split 3 ways in their will, that's $200K each for me and Vanessa after they. After? No, not after, now. Vanessa convinced us, Mom said quickly, too quickly. She said we could move to that lovely 55-plus community near her and we'd have money left over for travel. Dad finally looked up. His eyes were wet. Jesse, we didn't want you to worry. I didn't worry for 7 years, I paid. Karen the realtor, bless her clueless heart, kept going. It's such a hot property, original hardwood big lot, and with no mortgage the sellers are very motivated. No mortgage, because of me. Vanessa stepped closer, lowering her voice like we were co-conspirators. Listen, I know you've been helping with the payments and we're so grateful. Mom told me, but this is what's best for them. You can get your money back out of the sale, obviously. We'll make sure you're reimbursed. Reimbursed, like I'd loan them money for a pizza. Like I hadn't just given them 7 years of my life, my sleep, my 20s and early 30s, so they wouldn't lose the house they raised us in. I looked at the blue folder in my hand, the deed. The proof that as of last Friday at 4:13 p.m., Thomas and Linda Miller owned 1428 Maplewood Drive, free and clear. I looked at my sister, who hadn't contributed $1,500 a month, but was about to collect a third of a $650,000 sale because she had a realtor on speed dial. And I did something I've never done in my life. In the ER, I'm the calm one, the one who holds the hand and says, "We've got you." I smiled, a big, wide, Jessica the good daughter smile. "Wow," I said, setting the cake down on the entry table. "That's amazing news. $650,000, huh? When do we list?" Vanessa blinked. She'd expected tears or a fight, not this. Friday," Karen said. "We're doing photos tomorrow." "Perfect," I said. "I'll bring wine to the open house." I hugged Mom, I hugged Dad, I even hugged Vanessa, who stiffened. I left the blue folder on the passenger seat of my car. I didn't show it to them. Because in that 10 seconds, standing in my parents' staged living room, I realized something that made my nurse's hands go cold. My parents hadn't told Vanessa to sell the house. Vanessa had told my parents to sell the house, and they'd agreed because for 7 years they'd thought the mortgage was magically paying itself. They had no idea it was me. Mom had told Vanessa I was helping, but Vanessa had never told them how much. If they sold now, Vanessa would get $200,000 for doing nothing. I would get $200,000 back for giving everything. And my parents would be moved into a lovely 55-plus community 2 miles from Vanessa's house, where she could visit twice a year for Instagram. I drove home and opened my laptop. I pulled up the county recorder's website. I typed in 1428 Maplewood Drive, owner of record Thomas J. Miller and Linda A. Miller, no lien, no mortgage. And then I opened another tab. I searched Ohio transfer on death deed. I didn't sleep Tuesday night either, but this time it wasn't because I was worried about losing the house. It was because I was planning how to keep it. I didn't go to work Wednesday. I called in sick for the first time in 3 years. My charge nurse, Maria, actually gasped on the phone. "Jessica, sick, are you okay?" No, I wasn't okay. I was sitting at my kitchen table at 6 a.m. with the blue phone. By 8 a.m., I'd learned 3 things that Vanessa clearly didn't know. First, in Ohio, a transfer on death designation affidavit, a TOD, lets you put a beneficiary on a house deed, just like. Second, my parents had never done any estate planning. No trust, no TOD, nothing. Their 1998 will, which I found because Mom had emailed me a copy years ago just in case, said simply, "Our estate to be divided equally between our daughters, Jessica Lynn Miller and Vanessa Marie Miller." Second, my parents had never done any estate planning. No trust, no TOD, nothing. Their 1998 will, which I found because Mom had emailed me a copy years ago just in case, said simply, "Our estate to be divided equally between our daughters, Jessica Lynn Miller and Vanessa Marie Miller Carter." At 9:15 a.m., I called an estate attorney in downtown Cleveland. His name was on a billboard I'd seen on I-90, "Protect your parents' legacy." Ironic. His paralegal fit me in at 11:30 because of a cancellation. Mr. David Chen was maybe 45, sharp suit, no nonsense. He listened while I talked for 20 minutes straight without crying, which felt like a medical miracle. When I finished, he leaned back. Jessica, let me make sure I understand. You did this secretly. Your sister contributed $200 once. Your parents now own the home free and clear, worth approximately $650,000. Your sister has now convinced them to sell, with the proceeds to be split equally per their outdated will and move into a senior community near her. Yes. And you want to know your options. I want to know how to not get robbed by my own family, I said. My voice cracked on the last word. He nodded. He'd heard this before. You have three legal paths. One, you can sue your sister and your parents' estate for unjust enrichment after they pass. You'd probably win, but it would take years, cost $30.50K, and destroy your family. I shook my head. Next, two, you can tell your parents the truth right now, show them the payments, and ask them to reimburse you from the sale proceeds before splitting the remainder. Or ask them to amend their will to give you the house or a larger share. They'll feel guilty, Dad will have another heart attack. Vanessa will turn it into Jessica is holding the house hostage. He smiled just a little, which brings us to three, the Todd. He pulled out a form, Ohio Revised Code 5302.22. Your parents sign this, naming you as 100% transfer on death beneficiary of the property. It's revocable, they can change it anytime while they're alive. It doesn't affect their ability to live there, sell it, or refinance it. But if they die while owning it, it passes directly to you, outside probate, outside the will. Your sister gets nothing from the house. I stared at the form. Can they do that if they've already agreed to sell? They haven't signed a listing agreement yet, have they? I don't think so. Karen said photos tomorrow. Then they still own it. They can do whatever they want. The question is, will they sign it? That was the real question, because my parents are good people, naive but good. They genuinely believed Vanessa had their best interests at heart. She'd framed it as downsizing for safety. She'd probably shown them brochures for that 55-plus place with the pool and the pickleball courts. I needed them to understand what they'd lose, not money, but autonomy, without making them feel like I was the greedy one. Mr. Chen gave me homework. Go talk to them. Alone, no Vanessa. Bring the statements, don't lead with the Todd, lead with the truth. Mom, Dad, I paid off the house because I love you. I need you to know before you make a decision. If they love you back, they'll want to protect you. I left his office with the blank Todd forms in my purse and a knot in my stomach. I didn't go to Maplewood that afternoon. I went to work. I picked up a night shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., because I needed to not think. I needed to start IVs and clean wounds and do something where the right answer was clear. At 2:17 a.m., between a car accident and a chest pain, my phone buzzed. Vanessa. I stepped into the med room to read it. Vanessa, hey, Mom told me you stopped by yesterday, so excited for this next chapter for them. Karen is so good. She thinks we might get 675K. Quick cue, Mom mentioned you've been helping with the mortgage. Can you send me the total you've put in so we can make sure you get paid back first from the sale? Want to be fair? Red Eye stared at that text for a full minute. The heart emoji, the want to be fair. She knew Mom had told her I'd been helping, and Vanessa was already doing damage control. Getting the number from me directly meant she could control the narrative. Oh, just put in like $20K, will pay her back. Not $126,000, not 7 years. Thursday morning, I slept 3 hours, showered, and drove to Maplewood at 10 a.m. I knew Vanessa would be at her Pilates class. She posts the green juice every Thursday at 10:15. Mom answered the door in her gardening clothes. Dad was at the kitchen table doing the crossword. Jesse. What a nice surprise, Mom said, but her eyes flicked to the driveway, checking for Vanessa's Lexus. I brought donuts, I said, holding up the box, peace offering. We sat at the table, the same table where I'd done homework in 2003. I took a breath. Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen until I'm done, okay? Dad put his pencil down. Mom folded her hands. I opened my laptop. I pulled up the spreadsheet I'd made at 4 a.m., 84 rows, every payment date, confirmation number. Total at the bottom, $126,000 in payments, $54,218.47 in interest saved by paying early. Total value to them, $180,218.47. Mom's hand went to her mouth. Dad just stared. I did it because I overheard you that night in 2017, Mom. You were crying about losing the house, and I couldn't let that happen. So I worked nights and holidays and I sent the money. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel bad. I wanted you to feel safe. Silence, the refrigerator hummed. Then Mom started crying, not delicate tears, big, shaking sobs. Jessica, why didn't you tell us? Oh my God, 7 years. Dad reached across the table and took my hand. His hand was shaking, it always shakes since the second heart attack. Baby girl, You did that for us. We thought, Vanessa said the bank had some program, Dad whispered. She said it was forgiven because of my disability. My blood went cold. What? Mom wiped her eyes. Vanessa told us about 2 years ago that she'd called the bank and they'd put us in a hardship program. She said the payments were being reduced and eventually forgiven. We thought. We thought that's what Vanessa hadn't just taken credit. She'd actively lied to them for 2 years to cover up where the money was coming from, so they wouldn't ask questions, so they wouldn't feel indebted to me. So when it came time to sell, they'd think the house was a windfall, not my life savings. I was about to tell them about the Todd, about protecting the house, when we heard the front door open. Hello, Mom, I brought the paint swatches for the new condo. Vanessa, with her tote bag and her perfect ponytail, and Karen the realtor behind her. She froze when she saw me, saw Mom crying, saw the laptop with the spreadsheet. Her eyes went straight to the screen, to the total. For half a second, I saw panic, pure, unfiltered. Oh my gosh, what's going on? Mom, are you okay? Mom stood up. Vanessa, did you know Jessica paid off our house? Vanessa didn't miss a beat. Of course I knew, Mom. Jess and I talked about it. We've been so grateful. That's why I wanted to make sure she gets reimbursed first when we sell. I texted her last night. She looked at me, challenging me to call her a liar in front. I looked at Karen, who was awkwardly holding paint chips, clearly realizing she'd walked into a family war zone, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to fight Vanessa in the kitchen. I was going to let her win the battle so I could win the house. I closed the laptop. It's fine, I said, standing up. I just wanted Mom and Dad to know before the sale. Vanessa's right, we'll sort it out from the proceeds. Vanessa's shoulders dropped a quarter-inch. Relief. Great, Karen chirped too loudly. So photos tomorrow at 9. Sure, I said, I'll be here. I hugged my parents goodbye. As I walked past Vanessa, I leaned in and whispered just for her, I have every statement, all 84. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes did. I drove straight back to Mr. Chen's office. I didn't have an appointment, but his paralegal saw my face and let me in. I need them to sign the Todd today, I said, before the listing agreement. He called my parents. He explained it as a simple way to avoid probate, very common, protects Jessica since she's been maintaining the property. He didn't mention Vanessa, he didn't need to. At 4 p.m., Mom and Dad came to his office. They signed the transfer on death designation affidavit, naming me as 100% beneficiary. It was notarized. Mr. Chen said he'd file it with the county first thing Friday morning for $34. They hugged me after. Dad said, I drove them home. Vanessa's Lexus was in the driveway. She was inside waiting. I didn't go in. Friday morning at 8:47 a.m., Mr. Chen texted me, filed, recorded. It's yours if they pass while owning it. At 9:03 a.m., Karen the realtor posted the listing photos on Instagram. Coming soon, charming Cleveland Heights Colonial, $659,000. At 9:17 a.m., Vanessa texted the family group chat. It's live, open house Sunday, so proud of Mom and Dad for this brave step. I didn't respond. I was at work starting a 12-hour shift. But I opened the county recorder's website on my break. 1428 Maplewood Drive. Owner, Thomas J. Miller and Linda A. Miller. Vanessa could sell the house. She could get her commission-kissing realtor friend to market it. She could pack up my parents' memories, but she couldn't inherit it. And if my parents died tomorrow, God forbid, the house would bypass the will, bypass probate, The problem was I didn't want them to die. I wanted them to live in their house mortgage-free the way I'd worked 7 years to give them, which meant I had to stop the sale. Without looking like the villain, Sunday was the open house. I had 48 hours to figure out how. Sunday at 1 p.m., 1428 Maplewood Drive looked like a house that had never been lived in. The duct-taped recliner was gone, replaced by a rental from a staging company. The quilt Mom made in 2004 was folded in a closet, replaced by a beige throw with tassels. The fridge, which had held my third-grade art and Dad's heart medication schedule and photos of Vanessa's kids, was wiped clean. Stainless steel, empty, soulless. Karen had put out cookies from Costco and a sign-in sheet on a clipboard. Welcome, please remove shoes. Vanessa was in a cream sweater and jeans that cost more than my car payment, flitting around with a mimosa. Telling anyone who'd listen about the original character and great bones. Mom and Dad were at Vanessa's house. She'd insisted they not be here for the stress. I arrived, not in a suit, in a navy blazer and khakis, carrying a leather portfolio. He looked like a potential buyer, that was the point. Vanessa saw us at the door and her smile tightened. Jess, you made it. And, friend, this is David, I said. He's interested in the property. He's a financial planner. He wanted to see the house. Mr. Chen shook her hand. Lovely staging, very neutral. We walked in. There were already 8 or 9 couples milling around, opening closets, whispering about offers. A young couple was in the kitchen, the wife running her hand over the countertop Mom had always hated. Great light in here, the husband said. Vanessa swooped in. And the best part, no mortgage. Sellers own it free and clear so we can close quickly. Mr. Chen raised an eyebrow at me. I gave a tiny nod. We toured the upstairs. My old bedroom now staged as a home office with a fake Peloton in the corner. The bathroom where Dad taught me to shave my legs at 13 because Mom was working late. Everything was beige. At 1:40, Karen gathered everyone in the living room for her pitch. Thank you all for coming, we have a lot of interest already. Offers are due Tuesday at 5 p.m. The sellers are motivated, as I mentioned, they own it outright. Excuse me, Mr. Chen said, his voice polite but carrying. The title, is there a transfer on death affidavit on file? The room went quiet. Most buyers don't know what a TOD is. Vanessa did because I'd seen her face when I whispered 84 statements, she'd Googled it. Karen fumbled with her iPad. I'd have. It's clear, Mr. Chen said, opening his portfolio. He pulled out a copy, the one he'd printed Friday. Clear, with a recorded transfer on death designation naming Jessica Lynn Miller as 100% beneficiary. Filed Friday, May 2nd at 8:47 a.m., Cuyahoga County Recorder's Office. Document number 2020-600478182. He handed it to the young. Vanessa's face drained of color. What does that mean? The wife asked. Mr. Chen turned to her, still pleasant. It means if the current owners pass away while they still own this home, it transfers automatically to Ms. Miller here, outside of probate. It means any buyer today would be purchasing a property with a cloud that could potentially revert. That was a lawyer's stretch. A TOD doesn't cloud title for a sale, but it didn't matter. The implication landed. Karen jumped in, flustered. That's not how it works. A TOD is revocable. The sellers can sell any time. Of course they can, Mr. Chen said. But are the sellers aware that their daughter, who paid off the entire $180,000, is the beneficiary? Are the buyers aware that the motivated sellers are being pressured by one daughter to sell a house that the other daughter essentially bought for them? Vanessa stepped forward, voice shaking. Jessica, can we talk outside? Now, I smiled, the same smile from Tuesday. We're in the middle of an open house, Ness. You wanted transparency. The young couple was already putting their shoes back on. Another couple whispered and headed for the door. Within 5 minutes, the house was empty except for me, Mr. Chen, Karen, and Vanessa. Karen was furious. You just cost my clients a sale? No, I said. I just saved my parents from being manipulated. Vanessa exploded. Manipulated? I'm trying to get them into a safe community. You're the one who's been lying for 7 years, paying secretly so you could hold it over them. I pulled out my phone. I opened the spreadsheet. I turned it to her. 84 payments, $126,000 principal, $54,218 in interest saved, total $180,218. She stared at it. You told them the bank forgave the mortgage, I said quietly. You lied to them for 2 years. You told them to sell so you could split $600,000 you didn't earn. And you texted me, want to be fair, after you knew I'd found out. Karen was packing up her cookies. I think you two need to talk to your parents without me. After she left, Vanessa sank onto the staged couch. For the first time in my life, my perfect older sister looked small. Mom and Dad need the money, she whispered. Mark's business is struggling, we have the kids' tuition, I thought. You thought you'd get $200,000, I finished. She didn't deny it. Mr. Chen cleared his throat. Vanessa, I'm not here as Jessica's attack dog. I'm here because your parents asked me to explain their options. They signed the TOD on Friday because in the home their daughter bought them. He left us alone. Vanessa cried, real tears, not Instagram tears. I was drowning, Jess. Mark hasn't closed a policy in 4 months. The house in Westlake is underwater. I saw Mom and Dad's house as our way out. I felt something I didn't expect, pity, not forgiveness, but pity. Ness, I said, sitting next to her on the couch that wasn't ours anymore, if you'd asked me for help, I would have helped you, but you didn't ask, you stole. She looked up. What happens now? Now, I said, we go get Mom and Dad, we bring them home. We tell them they never have to leave unless they want to, and you withdraw the listing. She nodded slowly. And the TOD stays, I said, until Mom and Dad decide otherwise, not you, not me. Then, we drove to her house together, the first time we'd been in a car together in 3 years. Mom and Dad were in her sunroom, looking lost among her white furniture. When we walked in, Mom stood up. Did it sell? No, I said, and I took her hand. And it's not going to unless you want it to. Dad looked at me, then at Vanessa, then at Mr. Chen, who'd followed us. What's going on? Dad asked. I told them everything. Not just the payments, but Vanessa's lie about the bank program, the TOD, the open house, all of it. Vanessa sat silently, tears running down her face, and didn't interrupt. When I finished, Dad was quiet for a long time, then he said, Linda, go get the car keys. Mom looked confused. Why? Because we're going home, he said, to our house. That our daughter paid for, and we're going to live there until we die, mortgage-free like she intended. He looked at Vanessa. And you, young lady, are going to call that realtor and tell her the house is off the market, today. Vanessa nodded, pulling out her phone with shaking hands. That night, Mom made spaghetti in her own kitchen. The linoleum she'd hated for 28 years suddenly looked beautiful to her. Dad sat in his duck, which we'd brought back from the garage where the stagers had put it. I sat on the floor like I did when I was 12. Vanessa stayed for dinner, she didn't post anything. Before she left, she hugged me at the door. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'll pay you back every cent." I hugged her back. "Pay Mom and Dad back by visiting. Not by selling their house," she nodded. Monday morning, Mr. Chen filed a revocation of the listing agreement. Karen was not happy, but she had no choice. The sellers had changed their minds. I thought it was over. It wasn't. Wednesday, I got a certified letter at work. She was suing me and our parents for undue influence and financial elder abuse, claiming I'd coerced them into signing the TOD and that I owed her half the value of the mortgage payments as a family loan. The war had just started. The lawsuit arrived on a Wednesday. By Friday, Vanessa had posted a GoFundMe. The title, "Help a Mom Fight for Her Parents' Rights." The photo was her and the kids at Mom and Dad's kitchen table, the kitchen she tried to sell 3 days earlier. The description said I'd secretly manipulated our elderly parents into signing over their home, that I'd isolated them, that I was withholding their equity. She raised $4,200 in 48 hours, mostly from her lifestyle blog followers. I didn't respond online. Mr. Chen told me not to. Let her talk. We have paper, we had a lot of paper, 84 mortgage statements, the TOD notarized and recorded. A letter from Dad's cardiologist stating he was of sound mind. And most importantly, we had Mom and Dad. The court date was set for 6 weeks out, an emergency hearing in probate court to determine if the TOD was valid or if I'd exercised undue influence. Vanessa's lawyer, a slick guy named Brett who advertised on bus benches, subpoenaed everything: my bank records, my work schedules, even my therapy notes from 2019, which the judge threw out immediately. Their argument was simple. I was a nurse with access to my parents' medical information. I paid their mortgage in secret to create a debt of gratitude. Then I rushed them to a lawyer to sign away their house while they were confused about. For 6 weeks I worked. I went to Mom and Dad's for dinner every Sunday, and I didn't speak to Vanessa except through lawyers. Mom cried a lot. Dad got quieter. The night before court, Dad called me at 11 p.m. "Jesse, you awake?" "Yeah, Dad." "I'm scared," he said. His voice was thin. "What if the judge thinks I don't know my own mind?" "Dad, you built a deck by yourself last summer. You do the New York Times crossword in pen." He chuckled. "Your sister, she's my daughter too. I don't want to lose both my girls." "You won't," I said, though I wasn't sure. Courtroom 4B was wood-paneled and cold. Vanessa sat on the other side with Brett, wearing a navy dress that made her look like a grieving widow. Mark wasn't there. Mom and Dad sat behind me with Mr. Chen. Judge Patricia Morales, maybe 60, read the file without expression. Then she looked up. "Ms. Miller-Carter, you're alleging your sister exercised undue influence to obtain a transfer on death deed. Yet the deed was signed in my colleague Mr. Chen's office with both parents present, notarized, and your parents have submitted affidavits stating they understood it fully. What evidence do you have of coercion?" Brett stood. "Your Honor, the timing is suspicious. The TOD was signed 2 days after Ms. Jessica Miller revealed she'd been secretly paying the mortgage for 7 years, a fact she hid to create emotional leverage. The parents were in a vulnerable state, facing the stress of a home sale. Judge Morales held up a hand. "Counsel, were your clients, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, under conservatorship? Diagnosed with dementia?" "No, Your Honor." "Were they represented by counsel when they signed?" "Yes, but then I'm struggling to see the undue influence. Parents are allowed to favor a child who supported them. That's not coercion, that's gratitude." Brett switched tactics. "Your Honor, we are also requesting the court order Ms. Jessica Miller to repay the estate for unjust enrichment. She lived rent-free in that home for 18 years, Mr. Chen stood. "Objection, my client hasn't lived there since age 22. Sustained." Then Brett played his last card. He called Vanessa to the stand. She cried perfectly. She talked about how she'd always been the one to take Mom to doctor's appointments. She'd gone twice in the last year. I'd gone 27 times. I had the My Chart logs. She talked about how I'd sprung the mortgage news on them to guilt them right before the sale. And then she said the line she'd clearly rehearsed. "My sister thinks because she has money, she can buy our parents' love." I felt my hands fist under the table. Mr. Chen cross-examined for 3 minutes. "Myth. Miller-Carter, how much did you contribute to your parents' mortgage between 2017 and 2024? She hesitated. $200 as a gift. "And how much did my client contribute?" "I don't know the exact. $180,218.47. "Do you have documentation to dispute that?" "No." "Did you tell your parents the bank had forgiven their mortgage through a hardship program?" Her eyes flicked to the judge. I may have misspoken. Yes or no?" Yes. Did you stand to inherit approximately $200,000 if the house sold for no further questions? Then Judge Morales did something unusual. She turned to my parents in the gallery. Mr. Miller, Mrs. Miller, would you like to speak? You're not required to, but this is about your home. Dad stood up slowly. He looked old under those lights, tired but clear. Your Honor, he said, his voice a little shaky at first, I'm 73 years old. I had 2 heart attacks. I take 9 pills a day. I get confused about where I put my glasses. He paused, but I am not deaf and I am not stupid. The courtroom was silent. For 7 years, my daughter Jessica worked nights while we slept. She paid our house off while my other daughter told us the bank was being nice. Jessica never said a word because she didn't want us to feel ashamed. Vanessa never said a word because she wanted us to feel desperate enough to sell. He looked straight at Vanessa. She was crying for Vanessa, honey, I love you, but you came to our house with a realtor before you came with a casserole. Jessica came with a deed, that's the difference. He turned back to the judge. We signed that paper because we wanted to, because it's right. That house is Jessica's, not because we have to give it to her, but because she already bought it. With her sweat, we just finally put her name on it. Mom was sobbing quietly behind me. Judge Morales nodded. Thank you, Mr. Miller, she ruled from the bench 10 minutes later. The transfer on death designation is valid, executed knowingly and voluntarily. The claim of undue influence is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, the court finds no basis for unjust enrichment against Ms. Jessica Miller. In fact, the evidence shows substantial unjust enrichment would have occurred to Ms. Vanessa Miller Carter had the sale proceeded as planned. She looked at Vanessa. Ms. Miller Carter, I strongly suggest you dismiss your GoFundMe and consider family counseling. Gavel, done. Outside the courthouse, Vanessa stood by the steps alone. Brett had already left. Mom went to hug her, but Vanessa stepped back. She walked over to me. Her makeup was ruined. You win, she said. No, I said, Mom and Dad win, they get to stay. She nodded, looking at the ground. I'll take the GoFundMe down. I'll pay you back the 126K. It'll take me years. I stopped her. I don't want your money, Ness. I want my sister. She broke then, really broke. We sat on the courthouse steps, and she told me about Mark's business failing, about the foreclosure notice on their Westlake house they'd hidden, about the panic that made her see Mom and Dad's equity as her only lifeline. I listened. I didn't fix it. I'm a nurse, not a bank, but I did say, come to dinner Sunday, bring the kids, Mom's making spaghetti. She came 6 months later. Mom and Dad still live at 1428 Maplewood Drive. Dad finally let me pay to redo the kitchen, white cabinets, the quartz countertop Mom always wanted. He supervised the contractors like a shop teacher. The Todd is still on file. They could revoke it tomorrow and I'd be fine with that. It's theirs. Vanessa and Mark sold the Westlake house, short sale, lost money, moved into a rental in Strongsville. It's smaller, the kids share a room. She stopped blogging about candles and started posting about budgeting. She comes over every other Sunday now. She does the dishes without being asked. Last week, she brought me a coffee at the hospital after my shift, just showed up in the ER waiting room at 7:15 a.m. with a latte. She's paying me back $200 a month. Not because I asked, but because she Venmos it with the note Maplewood. At this rate, it's not about the money anymore. Last Tuesday, I walked into Mom and Dad's with groceries. Dad was in his recliner, Mom was doing the crossword. Dad looked up and said, "Hey, landlord." I laughed. "Hey, tenant, rent's due." My phone buzzed, a text from Vanessa, "Can you cover me Sunday? Kids have soccer, I'll bring dessert." I texted back, "Yes, bring that chocolate cake Mom likes." And for the first time in 7 years, I didn't feel like I was paying for a house. I felt like I was home. I'm Jessica, 34, ER nurse. I thought money would save my family. In the end, money almost destroyed it. What's your story? Has your sibling ever stabbed you in the back? Send it to my inbox. I'll tell the craziest one in the next video. Best story wins $50. I post real family betrayal stories every Friday. Subscribe so you don't miss it. See you next stories.